Well, my friend Suzanne Trebnik's here again. She is a physical therapist par excellence. That's the
And your
only
neighbor.
French, and my neighbor, and one of my very, very best friends. And she's going to show us some ergonomic, safer ways to use some hand tools.
So we heard from Eric how he had all these wonderful tools that he uses and expertise on which ones we need to buy. So I thought a good sequel to that would be, we have this good tool, that's a great tool, but if we're not using it properly with our body, it kind of defeats the purpose. So I just thought I'd grab a couple of these to start with here. So one of the major things when you're using a tool is to think about keeping your joints in neutral. So what does that mean, neutral? So wrist would be neutral. So we want to try to avoid putting our wrists in all these weird, awkward positions. So Radius came out with these tools. So that bend is in the handle of here, and you see when I grip it, the angle here. So traditional tools, there's the angle. So where's the angle when I dig? Right here. So here we are. We flex and deviate, so we do two things. We take the wrist completely out of neutral. Here, when we use it, we're already halfway there. So when you're young, you can kind of get away with doing all these awkward postures and put your body in these weird positions. But as we age, it just gets harder to do. So finding tools, if you need a new one of these, get one with an angle in it. So that's the reason there. And you said you like that one tool that had a vertical, because in that tool you could use leverage. It had a long handle, so you could use less of oomph and more of the handle to help you get deeper. Gravity, the G-force. Yeah. So that's the one thing with wrist. Now we have just a couple other tools here. So I talked about keeping the wrist in neutral. Let's move up to the shoulder. So we're out here like this. So if you move your elbow away from the body, that puts a lot more pressure on your shoulder. So every time this leaves here, you compromise your rotator cuff. So you want to try to keep this elbow here. So one thing to think about when you're gardening is glue your elbow to your side. So using any tool, just focus on elbow at my side, because it's so easy when there's a weed over here, or something's over here. Use your body to turn. Here I am, and here I am. So I want to keep the elbow close. That saves my shoulder. This doesn't have a bend, but you're trying to keep your wrist as straight as you can and your elbow close to your side. This was the tool you said you didn't particularly like for here, but this can kind of work once in a while when you get something stubborn. So what you want to do is, again, elbow to your side. Keep the elbow to your side. And then again back to the wrist. Do you see how even here I have to take the bend here, because this isn't.
Camera so he can see that break.
So because this is a straight handle, where are you going to have to take the bend? Right here. So as much as you can, if I keep my elbow bent, take some bend here, keep it at my side, try to do this motion here instead of this out here. Let's again, elbow at your side, take the bend out of your wrist. And you mentioned grip. So some of the tools he was showing us, Eric's favorite was a number 7, Falco number 7. So that's your next tool you want to buy, because the main reason Eric explained, it has a rotating mechanism. So when you grip or pinch, 1 pound here is at least 10 here. So it's a little bit here translates to much more. So many gardeners over time, I don't know how many of you in your club have sore thumbs, but this kind of aches over time. I know Eric mentioned that. I have a worn out joint myself. So what we want to do is avoid gardening as much as you can. Avoid this movement right here. Like you see something you want to pinch, try to avoid doing that. It's better to take a tool and some mechanism versus getting down there and grabbing that weed and pulling it with your hands.
Whoa. I've done so much of that, and I ruined both of mine. I had 2 surgeries for that. I wish I'd known this when I was 12.
So it just this pinch mechanism. So all day long, and gardeners, I mean, if you do it for a living, you're pruning, we could be out in the garden pruning half a day, 3-4 hours of constant pruning. That's going to wear out. It's a carpal metacarpal joint, and it is fragile and it will wear out. So just buying tools that take the load off your joint and avoiding this kind of a mechanism will save that thumb joint.
That's super.
I could just add one thing on shoulders. So when you're going overhead, like I noticed how Eric did that. He did keep his elbows at his side. He was reaching up, but he didn't do this. He did this. So sometimes when we have loppers, here, Martha's talking about pruning this. Taking the loppers like this and going like this would be an incredibly hard thing on your shoulder joints. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So as much as you can, even lower them to 45 degrees. But when you figure you're out here at 90, you're in trouble. Just as close as you can. It's not a perfect world when you garden. Weeds are all over the place and branches are every which way. Just as often as you can, lowering them down so that you take the stress off the shoulders. And when you have to reach, try to stay in this plane of movement, not 45 or out. So here I have to do what you did. You had him right here in front of you. And then he pulled his string. So I like to summarize that with 3 things now. Keeping the joints in neutral. Number 1, pinching. Avoid using your thumb and index. 3, elbows at your side. So 3 things. Okay.
Super.